Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Trish Cagliostro, Vice President, Federal Solution Architects, Anomaly. Trish, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'd like to jump right into the discussion here and talk about MITRE and their attack framework. What exactly is that for my listeners?
So the MITRE attack framework is really interesting because traditionally analysts have used machine-readable intelligence in order to detect threats on their network. So things like IPs, domains, URLs. And as adversaries have grown more sophisticated, we essentially needed our analysis capabilities to match that level of sophistication. And that's where the MITRE attack framework ultimately is going to fit in. What it allows you to do is to describe the goals that an adversary is looking to achieve on your network, and then the techniques that the adversary would then use to go and actually accomplish those different goals. This becomes really important because it takes us beyond just machine-readable intelligence and into something that's a little bit more advanced. And now ultimately what analysts are able to do is not only to use that data to describe the adversary, but also to then translate that into capabilities to then detect and prevent those activities on your network. And to me, that's one of the most important aspects of the MITRE attack framework, because I like to think of threat intelligence like a weather report, where if I tell you that it's going to rain, but you don't have an umbrella, the weather report's a lot less useful because either way I'm going to get rained on. And the same idea comes into play when we think about threat intelligence, where if I don't have the tools and the capabilities on my network to be able to detect and prevent those activities, then that intelligence is far less useful.
So what Anomaly does is it takes the information that MITRE provides and helps an agency implement and integrate it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think one of the things at Anomaly that we've really made a big initiative around is not just allowing an agency to implement the data from MITRE, but also be producers in that process as well. So on both ends of the spectrum, we're facilitating the production and the collection of that data, but we're also enabling the integration of that data to make it useful on your network as well.
Here we are in Washington, D.C. People talk about campaigns all the time, but has a direct application for your world and the federal world of attacks. So attacks are done in campaigns, and certain characteristics of those are different from others. Is that right?
Absolutely. And especially you've seen recently where we've had things like election hacking. We have other campaigns, things like ransomware, where they were actually meant to destroy and to cause impact and outages and costs to different networks. And so you really, in our world, a campaign can be very, very different from one actor group to another, for what they do on an organization's network to another. And so the ability to describe those activities in a higher level way is really important.
So many people can go to MITRE and get this information, but the real question is, how do you apply it? And I'll steal a word from NIH, it's meaningful use. So how do you get meaningful use out of this information from the attack framework?
Sure. So I think that's one of the most important questions. And right now, a lot of times people tend to think of this as just the detection aspect. So for example, I have APT28. One of the techniques that they might use on my network in order to achieve a goal would be something like dropping a particular file. And they use that file in this example to clean up essentially their footprint so you can't detect them. So if you think about the attack framework now as an end user, I know, and as an analyst, that this file is an indicator of APT28 presence. And what I can take that knowledge then and say, okay, well, I can go and detect that file on my network as an indicator for APT28 presence. And now there's two ways to think about that. One is the actual tool idea of now I need a tool that'll help me detect that file. The other idea is that I can actually use it from a policy and prioritization perspective, which I think is really interesting, because when you think about security, no one in security says I have way too many resources, I just wish I had more things to do. And what ultimately that means is we need to have really strong abilities to prioritize. The MITRE attack framework, knowing what APT28 does, knowing how we're going to detect them, can ultimately help drive the prioritization of the different security investments that I make. And so if it's a priority for me to be able to detect that file, it has to be a priority for me to buy a tool that can detect that file. Conversely, let's say I'm a small organization, maybe a generic kind of small consulting firm, and APT28 is never going to target me. I'm a small business. I'm not enough of a priority for them. I don't need to be as worried about the advanced capability of detecting specific files, but I might need to, so I wouldn't prioritize that, but I do need to prioritize, let's say, protections against ransomware, because that's something that has impacted me in the past and can have direct financial impact.
So a threat intelligence platform can help create reports that will allow high-level executives at an agency to make decisions and prioritize their assets to respond to threats.
Absolutely, yes. I think, and especially when you combine that with the attack framework, I think what the attack framework does is bring it from just a machine where traditionally security intelligence has been focused around machine readable intelligence, it brings it more to an executive level conversation where I can look and say, okay, this actor is someone that targets me. These are the techniques that they use. I'm going to need controls that are going to correlate to those different techniques that they use. And so ultimately, that's a positive thing because now I'm not just looking at this as an individual, machine readable intelligence. I'm looking at this from an executive perspective and how this can impact my business operations. And that to me is ultimately closer to strategic intelligence.
So what we have here is we have the ability to take and integrate the information that MITRE provides in order to make strategic decisions for an agency to prevent being attacked. And so it's the umbrella and the weather report. Now it's going to rain tomorrow. Bring an umbrella or bring these specific tools to react.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And to take that analogy further, right, is that if it's going to be windy, that umbrella is not going to help you, right? And so I need to have a rain jacket. Or if I know that I have to walk to work, I probably want rain boots so I don't have to step in too many puddles. The same idea with security controls. The more you elaborate and you understand the threat and the tools and the techniques that they use, the better you can make decisions on what are the right tools that I need as an organization to prepare and effectively defend myself.
Good. My guest today is Trish Cagliostro, Vice President, Federal Solution Architects, Anomaly. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, on the discussion, Strategic Threat Intelligence in Government, sponsored by Anomaly on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network.